Okie dokie. Starting to slow us down. So, hello everyone, welcome. This is the webinar for new student housing application and information with Housing and Residence Life. We will be having a short kind of presentation for you this evening, followed by a question and answer session. If you have questions, we will be trying to answer throughout the presentation, so feel free to drop them in the Q&A box below, and then we will answer them kind of more formally at the end. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in. But just while we're kind of getting started and people are still joining us, I'll just quickly share the agenda for this evening. So we'll do some introductions with our team because this is the first time that you probably have not seen most of us before. So we'll do some quick introductions. We'll review the housing application process for this upcoming academic year for our incoming students, which we will review both the timeline and we will review just kind of an overview of each of the steps that go into that application. We'll also be reviewing our residence halls, the overview and just kind of the eligibility for each of those. And then we'll finish up the evening with a question and answer session from all of you.
So hi, everyone. Thanks, Kaylee, and thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening here on the East Coast. My name is Mason Henderson. I'm the Director of Housing here at American University. I'm joined by some of my other colleagues in the Housing Office, again, part of the Housing and Residence Life team. Kaylee McDonald, who you've already met, as our Associate Director of Assignments and Communications, who works a lot on our room assignments and a lot of our community building in the halls. Desi Heneva is the Assistant Director of Housing Assignments. So again, on Kaylee's team, working through a lot of the room selection and roommate matching processes that'll be going on this summer for our first year students. And then Shamira James, Marketing Communications Coordinator, one of our great folks who helps us get a lot of the emails out to you all to get you ready for all the things that we're going to be talking about here this evening. And then we're also joined by our colleague Jesse Monroe in the chat and also during the Q&A session from admissions, just in case there are any questions that come up during the course of our chat this evening that are more admissions related and kind of larger than just the overall housing team. So very glad to have you all, and we'll be in the Q&A pretty actively throughout this presentation.
Awesome. So before we really get into things, we're just going to start with a general overview of living on campus. So the first thing that we get from students is, how do I know what kind of housing am I able to sign up for? So your housing classification aligns with the number of semesters that you've been eligible to live on campus. So obviously, as brand new students, you haven't been eligible to live on campus before, so you're all going to be new first year students. It's not connected to any credit hours you may bring in. So if you've completed any kind of dual enrollment, AP, IB credits in high school, that doesn't really affect where you're going to be able to live. You're going to still be first years for us. The residence halls have student resident assistants on each floor, as well as professional staff that we call community directors at American University for each building. So we do have staff on site that are able to assist you in the transition, obviously, to university life, but then also just to kind of, host events and kind of help you acclimate to the university campus. And then we do like to just kind of say that if you're signing up for housing, it is for the full academic year. So it's for both semesters. So when you pick your assignment for the fall semester, it'll be the same in the spring. You don't have to move out or anything like that when you hit winter break. But we do obviously have exceptions if you decide to study abroad eventually, or if you take a leave of absence and things like that. You can obviously go and do those things, and we won't expect you to be on campus for those. So we're going to jump just right into the application process because that's what's kind of the biggest thing on our students' minds at this moment. And we're just going to start off with the timeline. So the first thing is the housing application opened on April 2nd. And the application is open to all students who have submitted their housing deposit. And if you haven't submitted your deposit yet, that's not a problem. You will receive access to the system kind of on a rolling basis. It usually takes about 24 to 48 hours after you submitted that deposit to get access to that system. So don't worry if you haven't completed that yet. And then we kind of have a long period until the next thing, but the next deadline that we have is May 7th. So this is our priority deadline to submit your application. It's not a hard deadline. It's just one of those things that we kind of have to kind of see, who wants to live in housing, work with our counterparts and campus partners to see what communities you'll be living in the upcoming year. And so that's kind of a deadline that helps them see who's going to be with us. And then kind of a nice exciting thing that happens after that is roommate matching. So students that are interested in living with a roommate will be able to see all of the available options starting on May 13th at noon Eastern time. So they'll be able to go into the portal. You'll be able to see kind of anyone in your community that is potentially compatible with you. You'll be able to see a percentage. You'll be able to message them through the portal. It is optional, but again, highly encouraged. And we'll kind of talk through what that means a little bit later. May 16th, we'll release your selection time slots. So this essentially means that when our room selection period opens up between June 3rd and June 11th, you'll have the opportunity to select your space. So on the 16th, you'll just get to know when in that period you'll be selecting. And then the next kind of thing after you pick your room at AU is actually being able to select a different space. So if you want to swap your space or make any changes in the housing portal, you'll have until June 21st to do that. So, if no sweat, if you, pick your room and then you decide, oh, I'd actually like to be by the elevators, you can make a change. And then in late June, we will be releasing move-in time slots. So once you select your space and once you're kind of locked in, we'll release those move-in time slots. So you'll actually know when you'll be moving to AU. So this first step for the application process is completing the application. So just a couple of things that you're going to see here. You're just going to see some screenshots. The content of the screenshot just kind of shows you what it will look like, but you don't have to read all of it because I'll explain what it is. So like I mentioned, it is already open. And the first part of this application is really just confirming some information. So confirming your contact information as a student, confirming your emergency contact, which is important in case there's ever an emergency. And then setting up your roommate profile. So answering, putting a little bio together, answering some survey questions. So we're able to then connect you with a roommate later on in the process. It will also prompt you for a couple of things. So it will present you with our housing license agreement, which is equivalent to kind of a lease that you would assign with an apartment. But it's just kind of our contract that says, hey, I agree, I'm going to live on campus, I'll follow university policies and things like that. And then it will also prompt you for your interest or your intention to apply for a kind of a variety of things, such as disability accommodations through our Academic Support and Access Center, gender-based housing considerations through our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, if you're interested in all gender housing, Black affinity housing, or all female housing. So you'll kind of be prompted, and those are kind of same things you can indicate on your application. Now, just to kind of define a couple of those things, because we use some kind of different lingo here, wanted just to kind of differentiate what all gender housing is versus gender-based housing considerations. So all gender housing allows you to live with students that have also opted into all gender housing, but it's regardless of gender, gender identity, gender expression, or sex assigned at birth. So it's really just saying, hey, I'll be open to living with anyone. This is something that you can opt into or out of in your housing application, so it doesn't require anything additional. You just check a box and you confirm that you would like to be a part of all gender housing. And then once you get to roommate matching, you'll be able to see people also that have opted into that. Gender-based housing considerations, on the other hand, is for students that have specific considerations based off their gender identity. Some examples that we give here is just access to gender-neutral restrooms, assistance with seeking trans-inclusive housing environments or roommates. And this process is through our Center for Diversity and Inclusion. So while on the housing application, you can indicate, yes, I'm interested in a gender-based housing consideration, there is a separate form that you do have to complete through CDI, and we do link it in the application to make it a little bit easier. And then Black Affinity Housing was one of those other communities that you can opt into upon applying. So this is just an intentional residential community that's dedicated to celebrating, exploring the Black student experience at AU, and then also just kind of in the greater DC area and in the community. It's open to all class levels. So unlike some of our other first year halls, first years would be kind of mixed in with sophomores and upper class students. So while your roommate may be a first year, your next door neighbor could be a sophomore. And if you're interested in it, if you have any questions, the community director, Kendall Tate, is always happy to answer any questions, but she would also reach out to you if you were interested, if indicated on the application. And then our last community is all female housing. So this is offered to first year students that are female identifying. It's opt-in. So if you are interested in living in a community with all females, you just kind of check it off again on your housing application, and then we would put you in that community. For this upcoming year, it will be based in Hughes Hall, which is one of our traditional style residence halls that we'll highlight a little bit later. And now I'm going to pass it off to Desi to talk through roommate matching. You're still muted, Desi, but perfect.
Can you hear me now? Hi, everyone. As Kaylee already mentioned, the application process is a 3-step process. And right now we are at the start. Step 1, submitting the housing application. Next month, we'll be moving forward to step 2, which is the roommate matching. Our roommate matching will open on May the 13th noon Eastern time on the housing portal. It is an optional step. However, we highly encourage you to complete it if you want to choose who you'll be living with. It allows students to search for, create roommate groups on the housing portal. Roommate groups can be groups of 2 up to 4 people, including yourself. And there are 2 options, 2 ways to find your roommates on the portal. You can either view your top roommate matches based on the lifestyle questionnaire that you have filled in when creating your roommate profile on the portal. Or if you know already who you want to live with, you can search for them using their screen name, AUID, or my AU username, and invite them to join your group. While browsing for roommates, you might hit some bumps, and that's when our useful tips can help. Let's say you're searching for someone on the portal and they're not coming as an option. Please confirm these things. First of all, make sure your gender matches, so students can see roommate matches with the same preferred gender only on the portal. Gender mismatch can happen if someone opts into all gender housing and the other one does not. We've already covered in one of our previous slides the all gender housing option. Also, you need to confirm that you are in the same housing community. So students will be assigned one of the following community profiles: honors, DC Impact, Scholars, University College, Black Affinity Housing, or general population, and they will be able to see roommates with the same community profile only on the portal. And also, please make sure neither of you have already committed to another roommate group. If all this looks good and you still cannot find the student you're looking for, please reach out to us and we will provide you with further assistance with that. And now we can have a deeper look at the roommate matching page. At the top, you can see your housing community profile. And here are the both options that we covered, how you can find your roommate. You can either view potential roommates that are compatible based on your roommate profile that was created as part of step 1 of the application process, or you can search for a specific person by using their AUID or my username. No matter which option you go for, once you find your roommate match, you can go ahead and select invite roommate and add them to your group. Your group will be then created and visible at the bottom of the roommate matching page. You can rename your group by using the Edit Group button. You can view who has responded to your request, or if you change your mind, you can cancel your request. Once you invite a person to your roommate group, you'll be brought back to the roommate matching page where your group information will be displayed at the bottom of the page. As we said, you can rename the group, you can continue to search for, add more members to the group, you can delete members, or you can delete the entire group. Group members have up to 5 days to accept or decline the invite after you send it out. And then it comes the most exciting part of the process, which is our step 3, the room selection. Our room selection process for first-year students will take place this year between June the 3rd and June 11th. All incoming residents will be assigned random time slots within that period. However, early decision students will be selecting on the first few days, followed by our regular decision students. Before selecting your space, you will be able to review the floor plans for each residence hall on the portal. There are a few important tips you should remember. First of all, if you're selecting in a group, the roommate with the earliest time slot can select for the entire group, and they must assign each group member to a bed space before confirming. When your time slot starts and you log into the portal, you will be able to see all the residence halls you're eligible to choose from. If you don't see a specific hall that you're eligible to live in, that means that there are no spaces available based on your gender or community profile. During selection days, our team will be providing frequent updates on space availability for each residence hall. Once you find your building, you can select location. You will be then able to select from the individual rooms in that building. You can sort by floor on the left-hand side if you're looking for a room on a specific floor. And once you find your room, add it to the cart. You will then be prompted to assign each group member a bed in that space. Please note that if the number of group members exceeds the number of the beds in the space, you will need to add another room to the cart. For example, you're in a group of 4, but there are no 4-person units available to select from. You can select 2 double occupancy rooms next to or close to each other and assign those beds. And once again, as a reminder, you must assign each group member to a bed space before confirming, and you cannot add a roommate to your current group after you assign the bed spaces. All roommate groups should be created before selection, not during or past selection. Second, if you're selecting individually, let's say you're not part in a group, you will then be able to view potential roommate profiles before selecting an open space in half-filled room and choose the best match for you. We recommend that you, the student, review the options during this phase instead of selecting a completely empty room. Why is that? In order to open more spaces for groups, we will pair up students occupying half-filled rooms during selection days. So it is in your best interest to take the lead and preview and select someone in half-filled space that you think you will be a good match with. And what's coming next? Past selection. So students who complete the housing application and get assigned a time slot, but for some reason do not select a space during our room selection, they might forget or they might be distracted. They will get assigned a space by our team. That will happen past selection starting June the 12th. This is done to ensure that you have a reserved space on campus within your particular community. And as soon as you select your space during selection, or you get assigned a space past selection, you will be able to go back to the housing portal and browse for room change. Kaylee already mentioned that you can go and search for a better place. It might be close to the elevator. The room change process will be open on the portal all until June 21st. Following that day, students won't be able to make any changes to their spaces on the portal themselves, but they're welcome to reach out to our team for further assistance with that. And I think I pretty much covered the 3 steps. And now if you wanna just go and check, let's check what just mentioned. So June the 12th is when we start assigning people, and then Up until 21st, you're able to change your space for some reason. Then after that, you can just reach out to our team and we'll be able to help you with switching spaces. And now we can have a look for, what the residence halls look like, what the eligibility is.
Okay, so hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about what you can expect in each resident hall, no matter where you decide to live. So all of our floors and all of our halls are co-ed, with the exception of, I believe we touched on this earlier, but with the exception of the all-female floor, that you will, I mean, if that's your preference, you will go ahead and select that in the, within the portal. That all-female space will be in Hughes Hall, which is on the north side of our campus. In each hall, you'll also have tons of like different communal spaces. You have full kitchens, community lounges, and in some of the halls, we also have like separate study spaces. So off the top of my head, I know that Let's Hall, which is in our south side, has communal floor lounges, but also has like private study spaces, so that you can, have your academic time, you can have your fun social time. You also have laundry facilities on each floor, which is great. It makes it super convenient. I know when I was in school, I had to go all the way to the basement, and I also didn't have an elevator in my hall, so that makes it super convenient. And then touching on like kind of some of our campus partners, people that kind of work inside the halls, communal spaces, like, the lounges and the study rooms, and also the restrooms are kept clean by our housekeeping staff in our traditional halls. And for those who are able to get Centennial Hall, which is a suite style space, which we'll touch on in a second, those bathrooms are to be taken care of by the residents that live in that suite. And then during breaks, our housekeeping staff will take care of those. So I'm not really, I don't think I'm going to go through this entire table here, because I just want to read off this slide. This information is also available on our first year webpage, but this just kind of breaks down where you can expect to see different groups on campus. So starting with our like general population, these are going to be mainly our first year halls, and these halls will also have some sophomores like spaces, as well as possibly some upper division students, but these are going to be mainly where all of our first years reside. Anderson, Centennial, and Let's are a combined hall on the south side of campus, and Hughes and McDowell are another combined hall on the north side of campus. Like I mentioned before, the all-female housing is going to be in Hughes. Black community housing is in Roper Hall. I guess I'm actually reading through everything. DC Impact Scholars, and I do believe that a lot of the LLCs know where they are going to be located in. And there's been a few questions in the chat just about kind of how they'll select their space. So I can just kind of touch on that here, that a lot of people have been asking, if I'm in a specific LLC, how will I indicate that in the system? Basically, the way you're coded in the system, you will only be able to see halls that are available to you in that LLC. So for example, if I'm in Lincoln Scholars, when I go into the portal, I wouldn't be able to see spaces in Centennial, because that's not like how the system like recognizes me, if that makes sense. But yeah, these are all where the first year communities will live. Again, it's on our webpage, and then we'll also have this webinar kind of available to you all by the end of the week if you want to revisit this table. So when we look at your options, or what you can expect when you are selecting your space, we have two types of halls. The first we'll look at is our traditional style double. These are going to be available in most halls listed here on the side: Anderson, Let's, Hughes, McDowell, and Roper. With most of traditional halls, with the exception of Roper, you get kind of like a built-in wall storage that has drawers, a wardrobe, and like various cubby like storage spaces, but also like some closed door storage spaces. And you have a set of both of those on each side, even though they are built in. It's like one set and then another set for your other roommate. You'll also, have the typical furniture. I like to say that anything that is wooden comes within the room. So you have like the bed frames, you have the desks, the chairs, and then I believe you have like a little side set of drawers, or like a bookshelf. It's a bookshelf that you'll get with those traditional style doubles. And then the only difference is that with Roper, instead of built-in kind of wall units, you'll have kind of movable wardrobes and dressers and things like that. So that's kind of like the breakdown of the double. And we have virtual tours online, as well as these kind of like rendered images, but we have virtual tours that you can like put yourself in the space and kind of be able to imagine what it would be like to kind of be in that space when you're ready to move in. And then the heavily sought after suite style space is going to be kind of what you expect. So you have 2 sets of roommates on either side, and that space is connected by a bathroom that is only open to those who are in that suite. These spaces are a little bit different because they don't have built-in storage. They kind of have kind of movable like dressers and desks and things like that, but they also have a built-in closet that is shared between both roommates. So, you know, that's something to kind of look out for. And the main thing to highlight again with these suite style spaces is that the students are responsible for cleaning their bathroom throughout the year, which this is, you know, just to kind of expand on that just a little bit more. That's something that, you know, when students move in, their RAs will kind of talk to them about, you know, what does it look like to share that much of a communal space? Because sharing a room is one thing, but as we can all imagine, sharing a bathroom is another. So there's different ways that they'll go about that, kind of what our Res Life team deals with. And then during the breaks during the school year, so the longer ones like winter break and things of that nature, the housekeeping staff will come in and just do like a general clean of all spaces, regardless of if it is a, you know, a bathroom in a suite or a bathroom like for a traditional floor. And then once you have your space, we can start looking ahead at some really fun things that you can do to spruce up your space. So one of the most popular things people ask about are bed lofts. If you've been able to come to our campus either on a preview day or the most recent one, New Eagle Day, and you were able to stop by and see us, you saw that we had one bed that was lofted up super high. Essentially, a bed loft is 2 bed frames that are stacked on top of each other in a safe way, of course, to give you an option of more storage under the bed. So at the bed's normal height, you can fit like a few like dressers under there, or like just a few like of those like plastic drawers you would get from Target. But when you loft your bed, you could fit your entire desk and maybe like a chair. It does give you an option for more space. And so for that process, we call that renting a bed loft because it's something you purchase. And then if you purchase a bed loft by our specific deadline, which is August 1st, then your bed loft will be in your room by time that you move in. We do kind of keep them going on a rolling process, but if you want it before you move in, you want to make sure you're getting it on that deadline. We do not allow you to bring your own loft or bed risers. So if you are truly looking for a space option under your bed, I would say that bed loft is an option for you. We also have a video on our Instagram page that shows you how to raise your bed. So this is another option for space. You can kind of adjust the bed I'll say like pallet within the bed frame itself. So that's also another option. We also have fridge rentals. So while each floor has a full kitchen, they do not come with fridges. So if you want to have an option to like store your food in, you can bring your own fridge as long as it does meet our standard dimensions, which is 4.5 cubic feet. Anything larger than that, we will have to like kind of turn it away when you're moving in. If you do want a larger fridge, you can go through our third-party vendor, My Fridge Rental. They also have lock boxes as well, so that's another thing you can get from them. But they offer both kind of like a microwave and a fridge combination, because we also do not allow microwaves within the rooms, and that has to do with the whole like wattage issue. So if you are looking for that combination fridge and microwave situation that you do need like that bigger fridge for, that's a really good option. That information is available in the portal. And then the last thing you can purchase for our, you know, taller students, we do have XL beds. So the beds that are the standard across campus is just your average twin size beds. But for students who are a little bit taller, so long as you can kind of provide us like proof that you are as tall as you say you are, we can go ahead and get you that mattress. It is on a first come, like a first serve basis. So if we do run out, there is a wait list that happens, and then, you know, that just takes time with us getting more in stock and everything. So it is first come, first serve, but as long as you have the documentation and you get it to us, you know, before the deadline, then you should be good to go.
I chose the wrong moment to answer one of my favorite questions about bed lofts, but I will get back to that person in a second in the chat, or maybe we'll talk about it. So just some information regarding fall 2024 move-in and what our process is for move-in, generally speaking, and I'll kind of throw out some dates, but everyone should kind of mark their calendars that our period of move-in for first-year students, we have a dedicated move-in process. So we have specific days that we have our first year and new transfer students move to campus. Primarily, those dates are going to be Sunday, August 18th and Monday, August 19th. So that's coming up here in a little bit. Those are 2 days that we will, as Kaylee noted, on the timeline, and we will go back. Someone asked a question of whether or not these slides will be shared. These will all be available too. So the dates that I'm saying, just know that you'll see them on our website. You'll see them mirrored everywhere. But for Sunday and Monday, the 18th and 19th of August, we will actually assign in June move-in time slots for students, so you will know what your date is that you should be coming to campus, as well as what time you should be aiming for to get to campus. One of the reasons that we do that is so that we can best assist you with a move-in process. What that means for all of our first-year students, you kind of get the red carpet rolled out for you your first year. We work with some local moving companies and some of our own staff and faculty and student volunteers to help you move into our residence halls quickly. So what we do is we assign you a time, we assign you a date so that you can pull up to campus, you can go to your building, you'll be guided through the campus by staff volunteers that I mentioned, welcoming you, getting you to where you need to be, and you won't even park your car. You basically will pull right up to the residence hall front doors. We will unload all your stuff for you. Bring less than what you think you need is the recommendation that I give to all students. I've seen folks show up with 2 or 3 cars worth of stuff. You do not need that much stuff. Students, parents, talk to your students about how much they bring. Use our virtual tours, as Shamira mentioned, to get a sense of the dimensions of the room. But we will then take your stuff, hopefully only 1 car worth of things, and we will unload that into bins and basically bring things up to your room space while you, your family, your student go to park somewhere else on campus and go to get your 1 card or your AUID to participate in some welcome programming, to do some really fun things on campus without ever having to worry about parking your car and fighting over a bin or a dolly to bring your things up to your room. We do all of that for you. So that's the main reason that we want you to show up on a certain day and at a certain time. We will have an option, generally speaking, on Saturday, August 17th, for both first-year students and transfer students who are unable to make it for a particular reason or need to show up early on campus. There are a couple programs that actually have a slightly earlier move-in. We will hold that Saturday, August 17th date for some early move-ins, but it's less of an assisted process. We won't have all of those teams here to help you. So we get really excited about Sunday and Monday, and then we also have the option for that early move-in day on Saturday the 17th, and we'll run a whole process over the course of the summer so that in June you know when your time slot is for move-in, and you know how exactly to connect with us to let us know, hey, I was assigned Monday, but really would prefer to be here on Sunday, or neither of those days work for me. I'd really need to move in on Saturday. That's all going to be seamless and run through your housing portal. The other thing that I'll say is that is all that's all supposed to be guided so that when you get to campus, you can move right into orientation programming and welcome programming that's geared specifically for our first year students. So that's 4 days of programming that's running starting Tuesday through the end of the week. And then we go right into welcome week activities for the larger campus. So including our sophomores and including our upper division students in that welcome. But again, for us in housing, we get really excited and passionate about the move-in period for our first year students because we have a really developed process, and it really enables students, your families, to come to campus, to get familiar with campus with as little stress as once you get here. It is a very seamless process, and we have experts and a whole team that are ready to kind of assist you and get you into the halls, so you can kind of focus on the day being a fun day, a day to spend with your family and your friends, and then you move right into orientation programming. And I will note here on this slide that we will also have more information to share as we get closer to move-in later in the summer. So we'll get more in depth of those processes, but just kind of want to throw that at you to think about in terms of the timeline, which Kaylee mentioned, and then some of the details about how that will fit in with orientation programming and welcome week.
So that is the end of our formal presentation. I know we've been answering some questions in the chat, so we're going to kind of pull out some to answer live during this Q&A. While people are thinking of questions and dropping them in that box, I just wanted to pull up our contact information quickly. We can be reached Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Eastern time, at housing@american.edu, and also on the phone. And then Monday through Fridays, we do have a live chat available from 1 to 4 p.m. And then I just also listed our website right there, american.edu/student affairs/housing. We update the website pretty consistently. So if you're looking for information, it is probably going to be on the website. So definitely take a look at that if you're interested in learning more about move-in. That stuff information is coming, but in any kind of information we've covered here is on the website as well in the incoming students tab on the side. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the questions that we received kind of throughout. So the first question is just kind of going through what that May 7th deadline is. So for our department, May 7th is just kind of a soft deadline for students to tell us, yes, I'm interested in living on campus. I want to live on campus. So that deadline is really helpful for us if you are a student that may be in one of those living learning communities like Cornerstone, University College, or Honors, because then we'll be working directly with those offices to say, hey, you know, here's all the students that have applied for housing, which one of them or how many of them are in your program, and they will let us know. And so then we're just kind of able to prepare your profile to open on the 13th for roommate matching. Now, if you don't submit by the 7th, it's really, don't worry about it. It's fine. You can continue to submit your housing application. Just know that if you submit it after that deadline, the turnaround for us to kind of re-up your profile, update your profile, may just take a little bit longer because we'll be doing it outside of the bulk. So again, that 7th deadline is just for us to kind of say, here's all the students that are interested in housing, and then kind of sharing that with our campus partners. So they're able to kind of let us know who will be living in their communities. Another question I know I saw in the chat, and I know we kind of addressed it in the chat and kind of on here, but just want to reiterate, if you are in any of those living learning communities, there's nothing you need to indicate with us. We will be working directly with the department. So that's kind of one of the nice things about just getting your application done, is that we can start working with them very quickly to identify you and kind of be able to set up your roommate matching profile on the back end. So don't need to worry, as long as you kind of let those different programs know, yes, I definitely want to accept, or I want to apply into a certain program. If you have questions about any specific living learning community, I do recommend reaching out to them specifically if you have kind of really, individual questions about the cohorts or how it works with their program staff. They'll be able to kind of assist you with that. And I will also mention, if you aren't in a living learning community, it is absolutely fine. Only about 1/3 of our students are in some sort of living community. So there's still 2/3 other students that are it just kind of normal, regular old first years just coming in. So no worries if you aren't in one of those communities. Okie dokie. Good question here. So mini fridges. So just the question is, mini fridges are something that you can have. Can you have coffee makers, Keurigs, electric kettles, or any other kitchen utilities in the room? Mason, I know you unmuted. Do you want to?
Kaylee saw me unmute, another thing that I'm super passionate about talking about. So there's a really great list online, and I've been trying to link in the chat a lot of the helpful pages. A lot of this is on our website, but we have a what not to bring page. Generally speaking, for anything that you would consider, we call them a heating implement, right? So that's anything like a microwave, not a microphone, a microwave, a coffee maker. I'm trying to think, an air fryer. So generally speaking, most of that stuff you're not going to want to bring, and you're not going to want to use it in your room space. The rule that we have kind of written into our housing contract is that if anything that you bring is an uncovered and not a totally covered heating implement, you can't actually have them in your room. So the great example of a not covered heating implement is like a hot plate, right? We don't know that anyone still uses those anymore, but like that's literally exposed so that if something touches it, it can burn, it could catch on fire. Most folks will think that an air fryer or your standard microwave is a totally enclosed heating implement. That's not necessarily true. So this is one of the reasons, in addition to what Shamira mentioned, that we actually require, if you're gonna bring a microwave into your room space, we actually ask that you do that through our third-party company that we work with, My Fridge Rental, for any microwaves that you want in room. That said, we have microwaves in every single lounge. They're totally enclosed. They're super safe. We just prefer to keep those things out of the residence hall room as much as possible. And again, a lot of that is right on our website, because I know it can kind of feel like, oh my gosh, am I keeping track of all the rules? And every campus is a little bit different. We try and really outline that for you. And Shamir does a lot of really great work to make sure that every year we're updating that as our standards continue to evolve. But generally speaking, no hot plates. Don't bring a coffee maker unless it's totally enclosed, etc.
Another question I know I saw consistently in the Q&A is about single rooms. So for our first year and sophomore students, single rooms are not available for self-selection. So if you need a single, it's for an accommodation, which goes through our Academic Support and Access Center. We also just refer to it as ASAC. So if you believe that you have a medical accommodation that should allow you to have a single room, private bathroom, or things like that, I would recommend contacting their office and beginning their 3-step process. They do have the same priority deadline as our office of May 7th. But their process is very easy if you go on their website and start that pretty much as soon as possible to make sure that you get in. And then once you are approved for any sort of accommodation and housing, we will work directly with them. So if it's a single accommodation, we'll work with their office to make that assignment. If it's access to a private restroom or access to a carpet-free room, we will work with them directly to make that assignment. So while you might not be able to go through room selection, you'll be able to kind of rest assured that you have your accommodation met. So there's no kind of any extra thing once you're approved that you have to do for that. And then just to kind of put it out there now, when you become an upper class student, we do have a limited number of single occupancy bedrooms available in shared apartments. Those are very popular with our upper class students, but they are an option once you get to that level at AU. Ooh, I already did that one. Good question about storing bikes and scooters in the dorms. So I'll kind of give like a first part and then Mason can chime in. So we do have some bike and kind of scooter storage throughout campus that are covered. That's really useful for our students so they don't have to squeeze that into your residence hall room. You just kind of want to make sure that you register your bike. If it's a bike with our Parking Community Services office, to make sure you have access to those spaces. And then also it would make sure if anything were to happen to your bike, if it was stolen for some reason, they would be able to assist you because they would know that it's on campus.
Yeah, and I'll just add, generally speaking, I think these are residence hall rooms, so you want to save as much space as you can. I think all of our halls are going to have some option for bike storage, whether that's bike racks outside with, I'm trying to think, Kaylee, the first year halls, that's I think where we have our like bike tool like station is over there. Kaylee already mentioned registering things. Generally you want to keep those outside of the room space, just because I think it's just a best practice thing. For scooters, it's a little bit more complicated, I think. Generally speaking, as long as you're not riding them through the halls, it shouldn't be a problem, because I know you'll want to keep them and store them in your residence hall room. Again, ones that fold up. Sometimes those are a little less sturdy, but I think those are going to be a little bit better for you in terms of saving space in your room. The storage options for outdoor on that are not as great. So we work with a couple of partner companies to provide some of the rental scooters, which if you're familiar with some of the larger cities and urban areas, we do have a couple that are allowed to operate around campus. So there are also options for some rental scooters as well. Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Kayla? You already mentioned the big thing is registering, especially if you're bringing a bike, registering that with our Parking Commuter Services team.
Quick question about lofts. If you have a loft, can you sit up without hitting your head? I'm assuming on the ceiling.
It depends on how tall you are, I think is the correct way to answer that question. For the most part, yes. I think So just to explain kind of, because we had a couple questions about bed height versus bed loft, I tried to answer those in the chat. When we're talking about a bed loft, what we're talking about is basically the top bunk of a bunk bed without the bottom bunk beneath it, right? So it is raised up fairly high, but the way it's done is with basically extra end bed frames and then a loft bar to basically stabilize the unit. The bed height can still be adjusted before you raise that top loft. So if you put it to the lowest setting, you'll have a little bit of extra room, even though your bed is still lofted. When we talk about bed height, and Shamira, you already had a great shout out to some of the informational videos that we've posted. Bed height is something that you can do yourself. It's fairly simple, but the equipment is such that it's very different. When I was in school, the models that they have now are very easily kind of disassembled, and it's basically 3 pieces. You have a headboard, a footboard, and then you have the actual mattress layer there as well. So once you remove the mattress, that's just locking into those bedposts, and you can do that all yourself. And it gives you between 6 and 8 inches, depending on like if you're going from the highest height to the lowest, but it's basically like think slightly above waist height or slightly below waist height, right? Again, depending on how tall you are. And someone else asked questions about rental fees. Again, all this is on our website, but it's generally speaking $250 for the rental. Again, Shamira made a really good point about don't bring your own loft. We have equipment that we use that we install for you, because we don't want you lifting that furniture up in the residence halls. Every year we will find some folks who have found creative ways to loft their bed without using the correct equipment. I'm not going to tell you what those things are, because then someone will try them. Just please don't do that. You'll get in trouble with your RA, your community director, and we'll come by and talk to you about doing a loft rental. They're really great units, and we like to have them set up before move-in if we can. And Shamira mentioned kind of those deadlines coming. Right around the same time we have room selection, you'll have those opportunities to personalize your room space. And I know there were also some questions, and I put a link in the chat just so that everybody, or in the Q&A, lots of folks had questions about XL beds, because technically now most university campuses are now calling their regular size mattresses what used to be. Everything has just gotten longer over time. So the extra large beds are 84 inches long, and then the regular beds are 80. So if you look at it like an extra large sheet, depending on where you're buying from, the industry hasn't necessarily caught up to that change. So our regular sizes are the longer ones. And the bed frames are a little bit longer. So that enables us to basically bring in an 84-inch long mattress. You'll have a little bit of space depending on how you've set your bed height, et cetera.
There's a great question here of if you're not in University College or one of our living learning communities, what would we kind of have to allow first years to kind of bond? So like I mentioned earlier, all of our floors have resident assistants or RAs on each of them, and they're really there to help students acclimate to the community. So in our first year halls, they're hosting events, they're having meetings with roommate pairings to make sure that you're setting up your roommate agreement appropriately. And then we also host a lot of campus-wide and building-wide events. So, Shamira had mentioned Let's Anderson and Centennial are all connected first year halls. Typically they'll do a kind of a big event, in the fall, so you can kind of meet other people. And they'll kind of set up different ways, in the buildings or even on just your floors to really connect with others. So if you're not in a living learning community, there are absolutely a ton of ways to get connected on campus without needing that kind of extra piece. Obviously, it's very great if you're in a living learning community because it's kind of like a built-in aspect of your life, but you're definitely not needed. Great question that just came in. If you're flying to campus or flying across the country just to move in, can you ship stuff ahead of time? Yes. So actually on the mail services website, which we can put in the chat in a moment, they already have posted the fall dates for shipping items. I believe it is earlier in the week before the first year move in, and just kind of instructions And then they'll be actually hosting different kind of pickup hubs. So if your residence hall is not by our traditional mail room, you'll be able to pick it up nearby. So that's going to be something that you'll want to look into. But I think it's about a week beforehand, but I can drop that link in the chat. So yes, it definitely ship stuff if you are flying. Good question about the common restrooms. How often are they upkept? And are there tubs a part of any of the residence halls? So all of our communal restrooms are cleaned daily by our housekeeping staff, so that they're coming through, they're washing, they're wiping down the showers, they're wiping down the kind of sink areas and things like that. If you are in any of those suite style, those are only maintained for preventative maintenance. So like during our winter break, housekeeping will come in to kind of do one kind of clean, but they won't be coming into your room consistently, but any of those common areas are cleaned daily. There aren't any tubs in the residence halls. Most of our showers are just kind of single stand showers, but we do have accessible showers if you need an accessible shower with a kind of bench or things like that. Explain the gender neutral bathrooms. Yeah, so the gender neutral bathrooms, which we're calling pod style bathrooms, are essentially fully enclosed shower and toilet stalls with floor to ceiling windows, and then the sink is communal kind of in the middle. So if you kind of think about it as like individual use stalls, and then when you come out, you'll be brushing your teeth maybe next to someone else. That's a new thing in two of our residence halls. So one in Leonard Hall currently, which for next year is a sophomore residence hall. And then McDowell Hall will be renovated this upcoming summer to include that style of bathroom as well.
And I'll just jump in real quick, Kaylee, just because I'll give you all a little preview of like details that no one else gets to know, but you're on the webinar. I was just meeting with the renovation team for McDowell. So again, that's this summer. That will actually be slightly different from Leonard in that basically half the number of sinks will be communal, and then half of them will actually have them in the pod area as well. So we're going to try that slightly different style. We have some space constraints, but we've found that the gender neutral pods have been really successful. It's something that we piloted this year. I like talking about it because it's a great representation of how in housing we really work with our students to kind of incorporate what they want to see from their residential experience. It's something that our students have been passionate about longer than just the past year, but it's something that we work to incorporate in the renovation. And we've had really positive feedback from the Leonard Hall kind of experience for students. And so we had first years, we had sophomores, we had some upper division folks that were able to try those out. I always tell my first year students that I'm talking to and families, and anyone, we all know this on our team, but like everyone wants the Centennial Suite style first year rooms, which have a bathroom in the room, which is great and wonderful. I always just tell students, remember that, as Kaylee is saying, communal style bathrooms, which include the pod style bathrooms. So again, that private kind of like experience within a communal like floor style bathroom. Those are cleaned by professional staff, whereas your suite style space is not. And generally speaking, you'll be sharing that space with 3 other people. So during roommate matching, have some honest and frank conversations about what your practical approach to cleaning the room space, including the bathroom, is going to be. It is the #1 thing. I know it's kind of silly to say now in April, but like by the time we get to October, this is the #1 fight everyone is having about the bathrooms. So there are fewer Centennial Hall suites available. Most of our first year students will be in the traditional double occupancy rooms with communal style bathrooms. I tell everyone that is a great way to start off with your on-campus living experience, because you can slowly phase in as you work through upper division housing, sophomore housing on campus. There are plenty of other opportunities to have a bathroom in your room space in other halls. That first year, it's some of the first feedback that we get. Just something to keep in mind in our final 4 minutes.
Very important. Another question, if the halls have curfews, so this is college, we don't have curfews on campus. I like to mention that all of our buildings are locked by default, so access is 24/7. And all the halls also have a front desk attendant, so people are able to come in and have a person there, but there's no, specific curfew for entering or exiting the residence halls. Are overnight guests allowed? That's another really great question. So officially, yes, overnight guests are allowed, but this is something that we would recommend that you are communicating with your roommate or roommates with about any kind of rules about, when to notify others of overnight guests, how many, how long, things like that. So while we say, yep, you can have overnight guests in your residence hall room, you'll want to make sure that you're talking with the person that you're sharing your space with to make sure that they're okay with it and comfortable to have those extra people. And then just simply, if you have guests in the residence halls, you just really quickly sign them in at the front desk so we know that they're there. And it's a pretty quick and easy process.
Okay, I'm just gonna grab one, Kaylee, because I keep answering it in the chat. And my answers are getting more and more ridiculous. So a lot of folks have questions about coffee machines. It's on our list of things that have an exception. Again, it does have to be fully enclosed and it has to have an automatic shut off feature so that if it overheats or gets too hot, it's not going to set off the sprinklers in the building. The reason I wanted to answer this question live, this is another thing that, just a word of advice, when we're just about to reach our move out or we're about to shut down for the year here in a couple weeks. We have big donation. We have a project move out group that helps students donate items that they no longer need or don't want to use for their next year returning to campus or moving off campus, what have you. The number of single serve coffee makers that go into that donation bin is unprecedented. I know everyone, I'm a big coffee drinker myself. I have one of these things in my house right now that I had in college that has followed me around apartment to apartment. Just think about whether or not you're actually going to use it every day. There are definitely models that you can use and that, again, have the automatic shut off and are fully enclosed. But it's one of those items where I'm like, you can certainly have one. I see a lot of them go unused. We have so many options on campus. There's some great student cafe options, but obviously for folks who want to brew a cup of coffee or want to have tea in their room space, there are options available. Try and find the smallest one you can.
There's a good question that I want to address in the chat, that is there mail rooms in each hall? So the kind of easy answer is there are mailboxes in the residence hall. So if you're sending like letter mail, your student can pick that up with their mail key in their residence hall. However, if they have packages or anything like that, it is through a centralized mail location, which is in the backside of our Let's Hall, which is a first year residence hall. And it's actually really great because students will get a message from the mail services department and say, hey, you have a package to pick up. You can, quickly scan into a locker and grab it directly from there. And if you get kind of any oversized packages or things like that, they also have staff available to assist you with that.
So Kaylee, in the last minute, I'm going to give a very quick answer because we had a couple questions about fire alarms, because I have a couple quick just data points for y'all. So there's a couple questions about what we call a malicious fire alarm pull, or basically someone pulling a fire alarm to dump a building. Some of our first year buildings or some of our larger buildings. So this goes around every year on different parent Facebook groups as a concern. We have done a lot over the last 2 years to address the malicious alarm pulling. Basically what I can tell you is we run a process. It's not a process, it's a whole, we have staff basically that are used for it at the front desk now during overnight shifts, but we have a positive alarm sequencing, which there's some good information online about what that means. But basically we've implemented this since last spring. We haven't had any malicious or nuisance alarms this year. because of the positive alarm sequencing that we have. Basically, it's a system that allows us to cancel an alarm if we're able to identify that it's a malicious pull in the residence halls. The alarms that we do have, and this goes back to my coffee maker, my cooking kind of obsession that I have on this call for whatever reason this evening. Most of the fire alarms that we do see in our first year halls are related to either overloading a dryer for washer and dryers, like significantly overloading it to the point of like the thing can't move and turn to dry your clothes, or cooking in the residence hall lounges and setting off a heat alarm or a smoke alarm. So my last kind of bit of advice, if you think you're going to be cooking in the halls, doing anything with heat in the halls, test some things out at home with some help from friends, family who have cooked before, because those are the majority of the alarms that we're having right now are actually related to, there's a real reason that we want the alarm to go off, because either something's burning on a stove, we get a very quick fire alarm. We have sprinklers that basically have not gone off yet, but can and will if there's enough heat in a particular space. So we have a particularly robust fire response system. But for the most part this year in our first year halls, we haven't had the malicious pull problem that we've had in years past. It's an odd note to end on. Sorry, Kaylee, and we're 2 minutes over, but.
That's great. Well, that kind of finishes up our webinar for this evening. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be posting the recording on our website